I made up these 3 columns of data right here. I wanted to show you how to calculate all of these values for all 3 columns. Let's start by finding the mean of all 3 columns. What we can do is highlight this box right here, and then we can type in equals, and then type the word average. Excel uses the word average for mean. After we type the word average, we can put a parentheses right here, and then highlight the column, and then close the parentheses. That'll give us the mean of this column. After we do that, we can put the mouse on the bottom right corner right here, and then click with the left side of the mouse and then drag this across, and it'll find the mean of all 3 columns. We can do the same thing for the median. We can type in equals and then type the word median, then put left parentheses right here. Then we highlight the 5 numbers and we close the parentheses, and then we press enter. Once you close the parentheses, you press enter, and then we can put the mouse on the bottom right corner right here, and then click on the left side of the mouse and drag to the right, and it'll find the median of the other columns. We can do the same thing for the mode. You can choose mode single, highlight these numbers, and this actually doesn't have a mode because each number shows up once. And that's actually true for all 3 columns. None of them have a mode. For mean absolute deviation, we can type in equals AVE DEV. That's what Excel uses for mean absolute deviation. This is short for average deviation. Average deviation is another way of saying mean absolute deviation. Now, notice how this column has the lowest amount of dispersion. This column has more dispersion, and this column has the most dispersion because these numbers are all 1 apart, these are all 2 apart, and these are all 3 apart. What that means is this column should have the lowest mean absolute deviation, this column should have a higher mean absolute deviation, and this column should have the highest mean absolute deviation. Because as the amount of dispersion goes up, the mean absolute deviation goes up along with it. And that's what we're seeing right here. The columns with more dispersion have higher mean absolute deviations. The same thing will happen with the variance and standard deviation. Before we calculate the variance, we have to know if this is from a sample or from a population. Since it's such a small column of data, we could say it's from a sample. If we want a sample variance, we type in equals var dot s. The dot s stands for sample. We highlight the 5 numbers. Now as the amount of dispersion goes up, the variance should go up also. And that's what happens. The same thing will happen with the standard deviation. Since it's a sample, we'll type in equals stdev dot s. The s is for sample. We'll highlight the 5 numbers. And as the dispersion goes up, the standard deviation goes up along with it. The column with the lowest dispersion had the lowest standard deviation. The column with the highest dispersion had the highest standard deviation. And the column that had the middle amount of dispersion had the middle standard deviation.